Hello, welcome to Rough Cut Film Review. This is my special of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So I wanted to do this for ages. I've not seen any of the films for years and years and years, but I've got these very vivid memories of when I was about 8 or 9, going to a friend's house in a place called Minstead and staying the night. And his parents had a lot more lax parenting than my parents, so we were sort of left to do whatever we wanted. Ended up watching A Nightmare on Elm Street, and both of us were terrified. We were awake all night, and of course I went for a wee, at sort of 3 a.m. or something, terrified in the dark house. And of course when I came back, he was wearing his dad's hat, which looked very similar to Freddie Kruger's, and he was sort of doing that downward gaze angle turny kind of thing that Freddie Kruger does so well. And that was scary. So yeah, I mean, in terms of Wes Craven, I mean, I don't hold him up as high. I know he's a very clever filmmaker and clearly a very intelligent man. I don't hold him up as high as, say, John Carpenter, who for me I really put on a pedestal. I mean, his career went downhill and things moved on, and he didn't necessarily. But, some of the films, I mean, he just had hit after hit after hit, and just very different. I mean, all right, in the horror genre, but within that there's a lot of difference. So, things like The Thing, The Fog, Assault on Precinct... which precinct was it? 13. There we go. Assault on Precinct 13. Just wonderful, wonderful films made with no money. He did this brilliant music on them. But anyway, I'm not talking about John Carpenter. I'm talking about Wes Craven. So, and actually, just a very quick anecdote. When I joined Twitter, the first thing I thought was, I can contact, which I don't use very often, I can contact John Carpenter. So I thought, what am I going to send John Carpenter? Found him, and I sent him something like, why did no one see the Ghost of Mars? No. What was wrong with the Ghost of Mars? That was it, which was a really horrible question because the film had tanked, and it was a really poor film, and it sort of ended his career. And he sent me back, no one watched it. Well, sort of putting the cart before the horse. But in hindsight, it was a really snotty, shitty question to ask someone. And who am I? Absolutely nobody. Just on the end of Twitter. So bless him for actually even replying. So after all that sort of digression, we're back to Freddie Kruger. So we get in the backstory in the later films, he's the son of 100 maniac rapists. He's the son of Amanda Kruger, who is a Catholic, nursey, nunny type character who was very, very good, who accidentally got locked in with all these rapists into this asylum, and they were maniacs. They weren't just patients, they were maniacs. So Freddie is, over the course of the films, they sort of make him worse and worse and worse, but he's born as something less than human. He's pure evil, and prior to the first film he's killed 20 local kids. As a response to that, he gets off on a technicality, as they do, in films, but probably not in reality. All the middle-class residents of Elm Street club together and form a good old lynch mob. You know what it's like. They, with flaming torches, they turn up to Kruger's place, which is where the boiler is and, where he killed the kids. And they burn him alive. They kill him, and from beyond the grave, Kruger comes back to exact revenge on the Revengers. Avengers' revenge on their children, on more of the children. So he's out to try and kill all the kids of Elm Street. I mean, this sort of idea of this sort of demon, and he very much is a demon. He's not human at all. It's very old, I mean, it's going back as long as there've been horror stories, fables and campfires and that kind of thing. But what Craven did really well was putting a really contemporary spin on it. Really, it would have looked really modern and fresh and exciting at the time. And it worked brilliantly as the movie medium. It suited the movies absolutely down to the ground. It was fantastic. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the first one. So the first one obviously set the whole thing off. Now, Craven, interestingly, I didn't realise this, he didn't want this to be a trilogy or a franchise or anything like that. And he just wanted to make one film, the first one, and he even wanted the first one to have a happy ending, which of course it doesn't, because we have so many and Freddy comes back. So, I mean, it's a fantastically inventive, fresh, as I said, intelligent slasher film, but with a twist. It's really well written, really well shot. The dream sequences are really dynamic and interesting, and the way that they Craven uses the dreams is really, really interesting and something a little bit special. And I'm watching this, all these years later, and I still think it's fantastic. Clearly, Craven is a very clever man. I mean, you can see that up there. Very strong ideas and a very strong sense of what he actually wants to achieve. And that, I think a lot of the time that gets forgotten these days with horror films. So it is he does have a slasher sort of sensibility, as I think we can see definitely later with his Scream films. And in a lot of ways, regarding the slasher thing, it's very traditional, but it's wonderfully interesting and it's very playful. So yeah, I mean, the first one is a very good horror. There we go. The second one now is interesting. Now on IMDb, it's got a really low score, and Craven refused to be involved. I actually really like the second one, and I thought, oh crikey, they're doing something new with this. I'm really impressed. It's more the body horror side of things. So Freddie is trying to come back through the body of this teenager, and I really liked it. I mean, of course, some of the acting is really ripe, but some of the acting in the first one was bad, and the acting throughout is pretty incredibly uneven. So I don't want to pick on that one particularly, but I thought it was really, really good. Yeah, okay, there's some strange sexual politics going on. There's some homoerotic stuff that the director doesn't seem to notice. I mean, I don't know, there's something funny going on there, but because this guy keeps turning up to another bloke's bedroom, half naked, and they don't really know each other, and they anyway, never mind, doesn't really matter. It's I really like the second one, and I'm surprised so few people like it. Now the third one was really, really important, because the third one, the kids realise that they can manipulate. It's called Dream Warriors. The kids realise they can manipulate their dreams to fight Freddy. So, they all club together, and there's some fantastic effects in this. For example, there's one scene in which Freddy manipulates, this kid walks in his sleep, so Freddy manipulates his tendons as if he was sort of like a meat puppet, and then walks him up a load of stairs and throws him off in an alleged suicide attempt. But the other kids realise that one realises he can have wizardry powers, so he becomes in his dreams a wizard to fight Freddy. Another one's really, really strong. There's a sort of kick-ass female punk character, and she has knives and she can fight him, but she's a recovering junkie, and they play on that really, really well. And what's interesting is they all get into or try their best to get into the same dream to work together to beat him, because they realise they'll have to fight together to beat him. And what's really interesting about this one is just how the character Freddie manipulates their fears, because that's all this is about, their fears and their past and their problems to beat them. And it's really, really good, because actually in this one Freddie can't go toe to toe with the good guys. He's got to be sneaky. So the third one really was good, despite some really poor acting at times. Some very cheesy effects as well, but all in all it's very ambitious, and I think it's a really, really good film. Then we really did have a lapse there, so things started to get poor. So the Dream Child and things like this, and things really plodded on. I mean, they still made a lot of money, but if you check the scores on IMDb, people didn't enjoy those films. They're really silly. We get these sperm things flying around, which apparently gave Freddy his powers. We didn't need that, didn't need, and it's the first three I felt added each, the first two sequels, the second one and the third one, added stuff to the canon. They added interesting things. So the second one, we've got the body horror stuff, which I really like. The third one, we've got the Dream Warriors. We've got people able to fight back, and it's really, really interesting. After that, unfortunately, we then just had more of the same, and much less impressive. I don't have that much more material for this, to be perfectly honest. I've not done a huge, like in Bond, I did a sort of a dissertation on it. But I'm just going to stop there probably and just talk for a few more minutes in the second part. So, kind regards. See you in part 2. Christopher Thomas.